This cold open strikes like a knife in silence. It begins with Machiavelli's disdain for illusions. Men are driven by two forces, fear and self-interest. The viewer is confronted with the raw truth that pride is not strength. It is a weakness that blinds, exposes, and makes one predictable. Pride screams, power whispers. Machiavelli believed silence was sharper than any response, and that true control was exercised not through rage, but through the quiet breaking of another's self-image. The hook shocks the viewer with the unsettling claim that the strongest man is not the one who speaks, but the one who withholds. This intro forces the audience to abandon the false comfort of honor, validation, or morality, and face the cold steel of strategy. Machiavelli would never call that strength. A man without a mask is naked on the battlefield. He is soft skin against iron. He believes his honesty will protect him, that his openness will buy trust. But Machiavelli saw through this illusion. He knew that to reveal yourself completely is not virtue, it is surrender. In his world, truth was never sacred. It was a liability, a tool that must be hidden, reshaped, or used only when it bent the will of others. Every human interaction is theater. Some enter the stage desperate to be seen, desperate to be known. They bleed their emotions in the open and call it authenticity. But authenticity is a stage trick for those who have not yet understood power. The mask is not deception. It is defense. The mask is not weakness. It is the first weapon. Machiavelli would never call transparency strength. He would call it exposure. He would remind you that men are not loyal to what is true. They are loyal to what is useful, to what is frightening, to what they cannot fully predict. And so, to survive among wolves, you must wear a face they cannot pierce. The mask is silence when provoked. It is composure when insulted. It is a calm gaze when chaos demands reaction. To the one who wears it well, the mask becomes armor. But to the one who wields it with calculation, it becomes a dagger. Imagine the power of withholding emotion when another seeks to wound you. Their weapon strikes nothing. Their rage feeds on absence. They swing wildly at shadows, and the more they strike, the more their weakness is revealed. Machiavelli believed that silence was often louder than action. A mask of calm unsettles men more than a storm of words, for storms announce themselves. But shadows leave uncertainty, and uncertainty is fear. He understood that if you can keep others doubting, they cannot move with confidence against you. The mask breeds doubt, doubt breeds hesitation, and hesitation kills. Masks do more than conceal. They distort. When you refuse to reveal, others are forced to invent. They build false stories about who you are, about what you want, about how you will act. And the more they invent, the further from the truth they drift. They entrap themselves in illusions of their own making. To Machiavelli, this was never mercy. It was miscalculation on their part, engineered by your silence. Think of the stage. The one who wears the brightest mask commands the audience's gaze. They become the center of gravity, not because they are known, but because they are unreadable. This is the paradox of control. The less you reveal, the more they project, and the more they project, the more you control the story without lifting a hand. Consider pride. Pride demands recognition. Pride cannot tolerate being unseen. And so pride unmasks itself in desperation. It shouts, it performs, it announces. But the Machiavellian strategist watches silently, masked, withdrawn, controlled. In the contest between the one who speaks and the one who conceals, the speaker burns themselves out, while the concealed gathers power. Pride collapses. The mask remains. The mask is also adaptability. To one man, you appear polite. To another, indifferent. To another, fierce. You are never fixed. You are water shifting its container, a flame changing its shape, a storm altering its path. To be consistent is to be predictable. To be predictable is to be weak. Machiavelli would remind you, men are blind when they think they understand you. Do not give them the comfort of certainty. Yet wearing the mask is not cowardice, it is sovereignty. Royalty does not scream its power. It wears the crown in silence. A king does not confess his fears to the court. He conceals them behind ritual, gesture, and distance. The mask is his throne, his symbol, his shield. To strip it away would be to collapse the kingdom itself. The same is true of you. Your composure is your crown. What does this demand of you? To abandon the craving to be understood, to kill the childish hunger for validation, to realize that being known is not power. Being unreadable is power is not in pouring yourself out. It is in withholding until the moment is right. The mask allows you to choose the terms of exposure. It gives you distance, and in distance you rule. Machiavelli never asked to be understood, only to be obeyed. And obedience flows not to those who explain themselves, but to those who cannot be fully seen. The mask is always a weapon. In silence, it shields; in distance, it confuses; in presence, it cuts. To live without it is to be skinned alive in a world of predators. To wield it is to turn every room into a stage where you alone control the play, and so the law is clear. Never walk unmasked. To reveal yourself completely is to surrender. The game before it begins, to remain unreadable, is to make others read shadows and lose themselves in the dark. Law 1. The mask is the first weapon. He who defines the mask defines the stage, and he who defines the stage controls the play. Pride believes it is armor. It believes that by shouting louder, standing taller, and defending every wound, it will appear unbreakable. But Machiavelli saw pride for what it truly was. Not armor, but a crack, a weakness disguised as strength. For when a man acts from pride, he is not free, he is chained. He becomes predictable, bound to defend himself at every slight, every whisper, every insult. And what is predictable can be destroyed. Machiavelli wrote that men are not defeated by violence alone, but by the traps they build around themselves. Pride is such a trap. It forces a man to reveal his anger when mocked. It makes him chase validation when doubted. It drives him to spend his strength proving he cannot be bent. And in this compulsion to be seen as untouchable, he exposes the very path to his undoing. Silence is different. Silence conceals. Silence refuses the leash of pride. When insulted, silence denies the enemy their victory. When provoked, silence starves them of reaction. Silence makes others wonder if you are shaken or if you are simply beyond reach, and in that uncertainty, they falter. Silence does not fight the storm. Silence becomes the shadow it cannot touch. Machiavelli believed that silence was sharper than any response, for words invite counterattack, but silence leaves nothing to strike. Imagine two men, one shouting, the other still. The louder the first screams, the smaller he becomes. The quieter the second grows, the larger he seems. This is the paradox of power. To do less is to be seen as greater. To withhold is to command. Pride thrives on immediacy. It cannot wait. It must react now, prove now, answer now. But patience is the executioner of pride. By waiting, by refusing to respond, you force the proud to reveal more. They cannot tolerate your calm. They will overextend, overexpose, and overreach. And by the time their pride collapses into exhaustion, your silence has already won. Think of war. The general who rushes into battle to defend his honor often falls into traps set by calmer hands. But the general who withholds, who lets his enemy charge, burns the other's pride against the stone wall of restraint. Machiavelli understood this clearly. It is not the insult that kills you. It is the pride that makes you answer it. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is control. It is a storm held. Back it is fire smothered in stone. It is the royalty of distance, where every withheld word grows heavier than 1,000 shouted ones. Silence forces others into speculation, and speculation breeds fear. They wonder, did I wound him, or did he not care? Did I strike, or did I expose myself? And while they drown in these questions, you remain untouchable. The proud man burns. The silent man chills the air around him. The proud man reveals everything in defense of his name. The silent man reveals nothing, and in that void, others reveal themselves. Pride exposes, silence conceals. This is the axis of control. Machiavelli would never call pride strength. He would call it slavery, to ego, to impulse, to weakness. The man of silence is free. He is not dragged into battles of noise. He chooses when and if to respond, and in that choice, he becomes sovereign. Understand this shift. To abandon pride is not to abandon dignity. Pride is not dignity. It is desperation for recognition. Silence is dignity. Silence is the crown worn without need of applause. Pride crumbles when ignored. Pride dies in shadows where no one answers its scream. So the next time pride rises in you, remember, to answer is to submit. To respond is to be controlled. To be silent is to master the game itself. Let them exhaust themselves in noise. Let them expose their weakness in their hunger to be seen. And you, remain still. Let them fall into the emptiness of your restraint. Because to Machiavelli, the lesson was clear. Pride exposes, silence conceals, and the one who conceals rules. Law 2. Kill pride with silence. In silence, you cannot be measured in silence. You cannot be trapped in silence, you rule. Restraint is not absence. Restraint is fire with discipline. It is the storm that chooses not to break, the sword that remains sheathed while others slash wildly into the air. Machiavelli knew that men who rush to act, who let impulse dictate, their moves burn themselves alive. But the man who waits, who contains, who holds, who measures, commands a fear far greater than noise could ever create. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, but he also warned that boldness without calculation collapses into ruin. Restraint is the hidden half of boldness. It is the ability to withhold action until it serves power. To act too soon is weakness disguised as strength. To delay until the enemy has revealed their flaws, that is control, that is sovereignty. Think of restraint as fire in a sealed chamber. It is not visible, but it grows hotter with every breath withheld. To the outside world, there is calm. Inside, there is force. And when the chamber opens, when the fire is finally released, it destroys with precision. The man who acts with restraint appears calm, but when he moves with a certainty that others cannot match. The impatient are slaves to time. They are rushed forward by pride, by hunger, by fear of being overlooked. They throw themselves into battles, into arguments, into exposure, hoping to seize control by striking first. But striking first is often striking blind. Machiavelli understood that the patient man is the architect of destruction. He lets others reveal themselves, expose themselves, burn themselves out. Then, when the field is clear and his enemy is weary, he strikes once and ends it. Restraint is not passive, it is not surrender, it is strategy. To the undisciplined, silence looks like weakness. Withdrawal looks like fear. But to the strategist, these are movements. They are placements on the board. A general does not deploy all troops at once. A hunter does not reveal himself too early. Power is not in constant activity. It is in knowing when activity serves and when it destroys. Machiavelli believed that men fear uncertainty more than pain, and restraint creates uncertainty. The one who does not rush, the one who withholds, becomes unreadable. Others wonder, why is he waiting? What is he planning? What does he know that I do not? Their own thoughts become a trap. Their imagination does your work for you. Restraint makes your silence heavier than their actions. Consider the court. A man who answers every word, who reacts to every glance, is a fool. His mind is open to all. But the one who listens, nods, smiles faintly, and withholds his judgment, he becomes terrifying. No one knows what he thinks, what he intends, where he will move. His restraint forces the entire room to orbit around his stillness. This is Not passivity, this is domination through patience. The fire of restraint does not announce itself. It simmers beneath the surface, waiting. It builds tension, like a bow drawn back, but not released. Everyone sees the tension, feels it, dreads it. That is the power of holding back. The longer you wait, the sharper your strike becomes, the longer you withhold. The more weight your eventual move carries. To speak after long silence is to make every word a hammer. To strike after long stillness is to make every blow fatal. Restraint is also withdrawal. Not retreat, but repositioning. To withdraw is to deny your enemy what they crave, your reaction, your energy, your presence. It is to rob them of the satisfaction of seeing you fight on their terms. Machiavelli would remind you, he who sets the timing sets the victory. Do not let them dictate. When you act, choose the moment yourself, and when you do, they will be unprepared. The impatient are flames burning openly. They are bright, loud, consuming, but they die quickly. The restrained are embers hidden in stone. They do not burn out. They gather. They endure. And when the time comes, they ignite with devastation. To endure quietly is to ensure victory. Restraint reclaims your power. It separates you from the world's endless noise, its storms of reaction, its chaos of pride. It teaches you to wait, to calculate, to let others reveal their hands. It transforms every pause into a weapon, every delay into a trap, every silence into a storm waiting behind the horizon. Machiavelli never praised recklessness, he praised cunning. He praised the ability to wait until others were weak, and then to strike once with finality. Restraint is the art of striking once instead of striking endlessly. It is the difference between wasting energy and ruling through precision. So remember this: to act on impulse is to be ruled by impulse. To wait is to rule time itself, and he who rules time rules men law. 3. Restraint is fire contained. Hold back, wait, and when you strike, let it be the end. Loyalty is praised as the highest virtue. Men speak of it as sacred, as eternal, as the bond that makes kingdoms endure. But Machiavelli knew the truth. Loyalty is not iron, it is smoke. It shifts with the wind, bends with circumstance, disappears. When fear or desire is stronger, to demand loyalty is to demand permanence in a world built on change. To expect loyalty is to invite betrayal. Machiavelli wrote that men are loyal only to their needs, to their security, to their advantage. They will swear allegiance with one hand and sharpen a knife with the other. To him, loyalty was not honor, it was transaction. He did not see betrayal as a sin, but as the natural conclusion when interest outweighed obligation. Men love at their own convenience, he said, but they fear at yours. This was the distinction. Love fades, loyalty shifts, but fear endures. To cling to loyalty is to step willingly into a cage. It is to bind yourself to the promises of others, as if their words were iron walls that could not break. But words are air, and men change their words when it suits them. Those who build their security on loyalty will watch it collapse the moment the winds shift. They will cry betrayal. But the truth is simple. They built their fortress out of sand. Think of a ruler. If he trusts his court's loyalty, he is blind. His ministers will flatter him when his power is high and abandon him when it falls. His soldiers will fight for him, while the coin is steady, but defect when richer lands call. His allies will swear eternal brotherhood, then break it the moment it profits them. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Men do not serve out of devotion, they serve out of interest. And when interest changes, so does their service. Loyalty is a leash disguised as safety. When you expect it, you are bound to disappointment. When you demand it, you reveal your dependence, and dependence is weakness. Prideful men expect loyalty as if it were owed to them. Strategic men assume betrayal and prepare for it. The first are shocked when abandoned, the second are ready when it comes. Machiavelli believed it is wiser to make men fear the consequences of betrayal than to expect their devotion to prevent it. Fear is concrete. It does not shift as easily as love or loyalty. He did not argue against alliances or trust entirely, but he argued against blindness. To depend on loyalty is to depend on illusion, to use loyalty as long as it serves, and to release it when it breaks. That is control. Imagine chains. One man wears them willingly, believing loyalty binds his friends to him. He calls it brotherhood. But in truth, those chains bind only him, for his friends can break away at any moment while he remains shackled to expectation. Another man refuses those chains. He walks freely, knowing others will stay only as long as it benefits them. And when they leave, he does not collapse because he never built his strength upon their promises. This is the law. Never demand loyalty. Inspire it if you can, but never rely on it. Accept it as long as it flows toward you, but never mistake it for permanence. To rely on loyalty is to leave your throat exposed. To expect betrayal is to remain armored. Loyalty, at its core, is conditional. It is tied to the seasons of advantage. Men remain with you while the harvest is good, while the fires of your fortune burn bright. But when famine comes, when shadows grow long, their loyalty dies in silence. Machiavelli understood. Loyalty does not survive hunger, it does not survive fear, it does not survive ambition, and so the wise man does not mourn its loss. He anticipates it. What power is reclaimed when you abandon loyalty? Independence, freedom from betrayal, because betrayal no longer surprises you. Emotional distance, because you no longer invest your identity in others' promises. Strategic clarity, because you see relationships as movements of power, not eternal. Bonds, by breaking the illusion of loyalty, you free yourself from the cage others willingly inhabit. Think of storms. The man who builds his house on the promise that the sky will never darken is a fool. The man who builds knowing storms will come. He alone endures in the same way. The strategist builds relationships not on the illusion of eternal loyalty, but on the certainty that betrayal will eventually arrive, and when it does, he is already prepared. Machiavelli never asked men for loyalty. He demanded fear, respect, and usefulness. And when usefulness ended, he did not hesitate to discard the bond. To him, this was not cruelty, it was survival. He did not mourn betrayal because he never mistook loyalty for iron. He knew it was always smoke. So you must shift. Do not crave devotion, do not beg for loyalty, do not collapse when it ends. See loyalty as temporary alignment. Nothing more. Use it as long as it serves your ascent. Expect it to break, and when it does, move forward without hesitation. This cold clarity makes you untouchable, because betrayal cannot wound one who never expected permanence. Law 4. Loyalty is a cage. Expect betrayal and you will never be caged by it. Use loyalty but never depend on it. In its absence, you remain free. Reality is fragile. Men rarely see it. What they follow, what they obey, what they fight for, is never the truth itself, but the image of truth. Machiavelli understood this more clearly than anyone. He wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see but few can touch. To him, perception was the storm, loud, chaotic, and blinding. And in that storm, truth is drowned. Perception is louder than reality, because reality is quiet. Reality requires effort to uncover, thought to understand, time to measure. But perception is immediate. It is rumor, appearance, spectacle. And men are creatures of spectacle. They bend to the story that spreads fastest, not the truth that hides longest. To Machiavelli, this was not weakness. It was opportunity, for he knew the one who controls perception controls men themselves. Think of power as a stage. On that stage, it is not enough to be capable. You must appear capable. It is not enough to be feared. You must appear untouchable. Men will often not test the difference. They will believe the mask you create, as long as you never remove it. Perception is the crown even when the throne is unstable beneath you. A ruler can be hated, but if he appears inevitable, he remains. A soldier can be outnumbered, but if he appears unshaken, enemies hesitate. The storm of perception blinds those inside it. When you shape it, you do not need to prove yourself with endless action. You simply need to suggest, to frame, to imply. A whisper can do more than a battle if placed in the right ear. A mask of composure can outweigh the chaos of truth. Men will believe the appearance, because the appearance is what they see. Machiavelli never confused truth with power. He believed truth was only useful when it served perception. Otherwise, it was irrelevant. A man can be virtuous in secret, but if the world perceives him as corrupt, he is finished. A man can be corrupt in truth, but if the world perceives him as virtuous, he is untouchable. Power does not flow to reality, it flows to perception. Perception is also a weapon of silence. To let others misinterpret you, to let them fill the silence with their own imagination, is to control them without a word. Silence is the fog in which perception grows wild. In that fog, men reveal more about themselves than you ever reveal about you. They project, they speculate, they invent, and every invention tightens your hold over them. Think of storms. They do not need to strike every city to rule them. The sound of thunder is enough to remind men of their power. So it is with perception. You do not need to act constantly to be seen as powerful. You need only create the impression that you could. The storm is feared not because it destroys every house, but because every man believes it might. The weak defend themselves against rumors. The strong use rumors to their advantage. To fight perception is to drown in noise. To guide perception is to rule in silence. A strategist does not waste time, begging to be understood. He lets others misunderstand if the misunderstanding serves him. He lets enemies invent lies as long as those lies spread fear. He lets allies imagine greatness as long as it binds them closer. Machiavelli believed it was better to appear merciful, faithful, and just even if you were none of these things than to actually be them. Because men judge with their eyes, not with their hearts, and what they see they obey. To him, perception was not a mask you wore occasionally, it was the skin itself. What power do you reclaim when you master perception? You escape the prison of explanation. You stop defending yourself, begging to be known, pleading to be seen as real. You shift from being controlled by others' opinions to controlling what opinions are even possible. You stop chasing clarity and begin crafting storms. The lesson is simple. Never waste energy proving reality. Prove perception. Never defend reputation. Shape it. Withdraw when words would weaken you. Speak only when words will thunder. Let others see not the truth, but the shadow you cast. In that shadow they will find the story you planted, not the story you lived. Perception is the storm. It is chaos to those trapped inside it, but to the one above it, it is order. To the one who shapes it, it is law. Machiavelli would remind you, the people do not follow truth. They follow what they believe truth to be, and he who crafts that belief is already king. Law 5. Do not fight perception. Command it. Reality is forgotten. Perception remains. Shape the storm, and you rule it.
Royalty is not loud. Royalty does not rush to be seen. Its power does not come from constant presence but from rare appearance. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Men do not value what is always available. They value what is scarce, what is
withheld, what they cannot easily touch. A king is not powerful because he is everywhere. He is powerful because he is absent until he chooses to appear. Withdrawal is not retreat. Withdrawal is strategy. To pull back is to increase your value. To step away is to force others to lean closer, Machiavelli would remind you. When you are too present, you become common. When you are common, you are taken for granted. The constant flame warms, but it is not revered. The distant fire seen rarely on the mountain is remembered as divine. Consider silence. It is not emptiness, it is weight. In withdrawal, silence grows heavier. The absence of your words forces others to replay your last ones. The absence of your presence forces others to imagine what you are planning. Withdrawal amplifies imagination, and imagination is more powerful than reality. Machiavelli believed that rulers must remain slightly distant from their people. Too much closeness breeds contempt. Too much availability breeds weakness. Men admire what they cannot touch, what they cannot predict, what they cannot possess. Withdrawal creates mystery. Mystery creates reverence. Reverence sustains power longer than familiarity ever could. The proud man insists on being everywhere. He shows himself at every feast, inserts himself into every quarrel, speaks at every chance, but his presence dilutes him. He is seen too much, heard too often, measured too easily. His power shrinks not because he is weak, but because he is constant, and constancy kills awe. Withdrawal is the crown. When you step back, you force others to notice the space you leave behind. That space becomes your throne. That absence becomes your authority. Men begin to wonder, why is he silent? Why is she gone? What does their distance mean? This wonder becomes dependence. Dependence becomes power. Think of storms again. The rain that falls every day is ordinary. The drought that ends in a single storm. The people kneel for it. So too, with you. If you are always available, your presence becomes the daily rain. But if you withdraw, your return is the storm they cannot ignore. Machiavelli never asked men to chase approval. He asked them to chase control, and control is built, not by constant noise, but by disciplined absence. Let them wonder where you went, he would whisper. Let silence be your legacy. For when they cannot find you, they imagine you, and imagination is always more powerful than your presence. Withdrawal is also protection. The more you appear, the more you expose yourself to judgment, to envy, to attack. The more you withdraw, the harder it is for enemies to predict. The harder it is for rivals to strike. Absence is not only reverence, it is shield. The enemy cannot kill what he cannot find. What shift does this demand of you? To abandon the hunger for constant recognition, to see absence not as loss but as elevation, to understand that being everywhere is to be owned by everyone, but to be scarce is to be sovereign. Withdrawal teaches that you do not chase, they chase you. You do not explain, they speculate. You do not appear, they imagine. Royalty is in withdrawal. It is the discipline of being rare, the fire of being distant, the silence of being absent. When you step back, you rise higher. When you withhold, you are crowned. Law 6. Do not waste power in constant presence. Withdraw, be rare, be distant. Let absence become your throne. Weapons end stories. Shadows extend them. Machiavelli knew that violence is a blunt instrument. It can silence, but it cannot rule for long. A man killed becomes a martyr. A rival crushed openly becomes a legend whispered about in rebellion. Weapons win battles, but shadows win wars. For shadows do not announce themselves. Shadows suffocate without a sound. Machiavelli wrote that the wise ruler does not destroy when he can destabilize, does not kill when he can confuse, does not strike when he can suffocate silently. Violence leaves evidence. Shadows leave uncertainty, and uncertainty is more terrifying than the sword. A blade shows where it cut. A shadow leaves men wondering if it was ever there at all. Consider the psychology of fear. Fear of violence is sharp, but it fades once the wound heals. Fear of shadows is endless, because it never resolves. The man who lives under the threat of violence adjusts. The man who lives under the weight of uncertainty never rests. He doubts his allies, he questions his steps, he hears footsteps in silence, he collapses not from wounds, but from the storm inside his mind. To Machiavelli, Control was not about open destruction. It was about invisible pressure. He believed silence, ambiguity, and absence could break men more completely than blades. For when you strike with a weapon, the enemy knows the battle has begun. But when you strike with shadows, they never know if the battle has already ended or if it was ever real at all. Think of the court. The man who pulls a dagger creates one enemy less. The man who spreads doubt creates 10 whispers, glances, sudden withdrawals. These are shadows. They corrode trust faster than any blade. A knife kills a body, a shadow kills an alliance, and once suspicion enters, it spreads like fire. The greatest rulers in history used shadows. They let rivals destroy one another while they remained silent. They planted rumors instead of swords. They withdrew when presence would have trapped them, and appeared only when absence had already done their work. This is not mercy, it is strategy. To be feared without lifting a hand is the highest form of control. Machiavelli never praised the soldier who boasted of blood. He praised the strategist who killed without. Being seen to him, shadows were more lethal than weapons because they carried no cost. They required no blood, no armies, no spectacle. Only patience, only silence, only the discipline to let imagination do the killing for you. Weapons demand reaction. Shadows deny it. When you use violence, the enemy knows you are strong, but also knows where to strike back. When you use shadows, he does not even know where to begin. He strikes into the void, and every movement weakens him further. This is how empires are ruled, not by fire in the open, but by silence in the dark. Shadows also protect you. They allow you to move unseen, to shape narratives without exposure, to influence without being targeted. A man who acts in shadows can never be confronted directly, because no one is sure of his hand. This is the ultimate crown. Power without exposure, influence without resistance. Imagine storms again. A violent storm destroys in a night, but it is remembered as an event. A silent drought kills slowly, invisibly, until the land is ruined and no one remembers when it began. Violence is the storm. Shadows are the drought. Which one leaves a deeper scar? Which one truly breaks pride? What does this demand of you? To stop believing confrontation is the only path to victory, to stop measuring power by visible clashes, to learn to let silence break men, to let distance corrode pride, to let uncertainty become the weapon they cannot parry. You must embrace shadows not as deception, but as strategy. Every withheld word, every delayed response, every sudden absence is a shadow cast over another's pride, and pride collapses in shadow because it cannot see itself reflected. Machiavelli would remind you, violence is for the desperate, shadows are for the rulers. Violence shows your strength, shadows conceal it, and in concealment, multiply it. So the law is clear. Shadows over weapons, silence over screams, doubt over confrontation. For the man who lives in fear of shadows is already conquered. Law 7. Do not waste yourself in violence. Use shadows. In shadows, pride suffocates. In shadows, control is eternal. The conclusion ties the 10 laws into a single shift. Control without noise, without dependence, without exposure. Machiavelli's vision was never about comfort. It was about survival, elevation, and dominance through perception. The closing reminds the viewer that those who scream are forgotten. Those who withdraw are remembered. That silence is sharper than a sword, that pride is always a weakness. The cinematic call to action: withdraw, reposition, reframe. Machiavelli would say, now they know not to cross you. The ending leaves no warmth, only clarity. To rule is not to fight, but to vanish at the precise moment, leaving only silence, shadows, and fear.